I spent the last few months perfecting this wheat sourdough recipe so that you don't have to. It's sour, hearty, and stays together perfectly for sandwiches. The first thing we're going to do is get our wet ingredients mixed together. We're going to start with the starter and the water, and we're going to put a little bit of flour in that and mix it up good. You don't have to be super aggressive with this mixture. You just want to break up the starter and the water and get it fully incorporated. It's going to mix with the flour better and create a better fermentation. Now we're going to add both of our flours. I do not like to mix the salt with the water and the starter. I think that it affects the starter in a negative way when the salt gets introduced directly to it. So I like to add the starter, water, and then all the flours on top. Then I'm going to dump the salt on top of that so that it doesn't hit the starter directly. With this mix, we're really just looking to get all those wet and dry ingredients mixed together and stuck together. You'll see that I'm using the whisk to basically scrape the sides of the bowl. What's happening here is all that flour and moisture is mixing together and starting to autolyze. Basically, this mixture of starter, water, flour, salt is a living creature. So what we're going to do is we want it to be strong and we want to give it gluten. We're going to build a lot of gluten right up front by smashing that down, folding it over multiple times. You'll feel it start to get very stiff, and this is what we're looking for. I like to do this thing now where I fold the dough over on itself and I kind of pinch it all in towards the bottom of itself. It builds a nice, like, dome top. Helps you tell how much it's grown, and you can actually tell how smooth the dough is a lot easier when you've been doing that. Now it's time for our first stretch and fold. I'm just going to pull that dough up, fold it over, turn my bowl a quarter of a turn, and I want to do that all four directions. Sometimes it gets a little too stiff to do that with. Then I'll pick that up and I'll just do that same balling motion. Kind of learned that with pizza dough, but you can already see how smooth this is getting. So much smoother than the last when we put it on. We're going to wait another 20 minutes, do another stretch and fold after that. Come back to it. You can see how smooth it is. It's really, the texture's just about there. You can do up to four stretch and folds if you want to, but definitely I didn't need to. I could feel the dough was uh, just there. The ingredients were all mixed together. Nothing was dry. And you can see from the stretch and how smooth this gets when I do that again. Um, I'm right there. This is going to make perfect sourdough sandwich bread. The key to telling if the bulk ferment has gone the way you want it to, be a little bit jiggly. You can poke that and it'll leave a bit of an indentation, but it will usually spring back. The other major factor you're looking for is, does it stick to my finger when I pull it away? And it wasn't sticking at all. It could have gone another hour if I wanted it to, but because I do such a long fridge ferment, it's not really necessary. The key to a good rise is the tension. I'm going to turn this dough out onto that flour, uh, dome side down. I'm going to pinch some of that dough off for my wife, or she'll sneak some while it's in the fridge and ruin it. So what I like to do is take a little bite of that, and I'm going to flatten it out ever so slightly. I don't want to pop all the bubbles that I created during that bulk ferment. So now I'm just going to go around pulling all the edges into the center, and then I'm going to flip that down so the belly button is on the bottom. I'm going to kind of do this swirling, pushing, and pulling motion. And you can see the tension that's just building up on the bottom of that. It's going to close that gap up, and the top is just so tight it's like a balloon. Do a few of these swirls where I roll it around. All these things are like just little things that you can do to make your bread a little bit stronger and a little bit tighter. It'll give it a lot better crust as well. So I'm going to put that nice side down, and then I'm going to use kind of like a stitching pattern to close up the bottom. Pat that out. Treat her nice and gentle. Then I'm going to put a little bit of flour on that so that my plastic wrap doesn't stick to it. Some people use shower curtains, or not shower curtains, shower caps, other things. A wet towel would be fine, but I like to use this saran wrap. That way stuff doesn't get into it from the fridge. Doesn't need to be tight, doesn't need to touch, anything like that. Now I'm going to stick this in the fridge. I like to do 3 days is pretty optimal, but you could go up to 5. 3 days is where it gets its like peak sour, in my opinion, and you don't start to lose rise from it flattening out. So I'm just going to put a piece of parchment paper over the top of this, do a little bit of a flip, and give it a good score. This Dutch oven's been preheated to 450 degrees. I like to do 2 scores in my bread. You don't always have to, but on these, it you can make fancy patterns if you want to, but you want to have one that's actually pretty deep, like inch or so. Then I put another one over there just for looks. Really doesn't matter how you cut these or score them. You don't even have to do that, but you will find that your dough will rise better. It'll look more like your traditional sourdough loaf. After 30 minutes, I'm pulling that out of the oven and taking the top off. What I want to do is check the temperature on that, looking for between 195 and 200 degrees. I want that to be a little crisp on top, so I'm going to throw that back in the 450-degree oven for about 5 to 7 minutes until I get those nice little dark ridges on there. Then you're going to want to cool this completely. I like to just put them on a cookie sheet, cookie rack, cookie cooling rack, bread rack, whatever it is. If you can get it up off of the counter, you're going to have a better texture and you're not going to stick to anything. After about an hour and a half, this bread had cooled all the way through. You can see I'm wearing a hoodie. It was relatively cool outside. So now we can go ahead and cut into this. My preferred method with these boules or the round breads is cutting one sharp cut right through the middle of it. Oh man, I wish that my sound was better and you'd hear that crispy crust just cutting, but it was so soft in the middle. The texture was great. It stuck together great. All in all, this was a great tasting loaf. After cutting into that, the whole house filled with sourdough smell. Had to cut me off a piece and get some Kerrygold butter on that right away. As you can see, when I butter that up, you're not seeing crumbs or you're not seeing flake of bread come off. It was perfectly tender and moist, and this is a really hearty bread. If you wanted to make it more hearty, you could add some flax meal or some flax seeds, but this is just about perfect in my opinion. This is the loaf I make every week.